And today we unpack South Africa's fragile economic outlook in the face of global headwinds, rising US tariffs, and tense South Africa-US relations. Now, to look at the detail or the events behind the statement is Citadel's chief economist, Maarten Ackerman, and he warns investors that investor confidence is slipping and growth prospects are under pressure. With forecasts revised downwards, let's allow him to join me and let's have a look at what this means for the economy and what can be done to turn things around. Maarten, thank you so much for your time. I think, Maarten, there's a lot that's happening, and I would even say, let me let it to you to give an overview of where we are at as a South African economy and what this means for our growth and trajectory going forward.
Yeah, Zanele, so we just had the print of the first quarter GDP for 2025. Better than market expected, 0.1%. Market expected a minus 0.1%. But, you can argue that's almost no growth. So that is the sad reality. The economy is not going anywhere at this point in time. A number of reasons for that. If we look at the growth of the last year, it's only 0.8%. So it's sub 1%. We've been in that kind of growth trap for the last how many years? And at the same time, our population growth is almost double that, around about 1.5%. So as long as the population is outpacing, the growth in the population is outpacing the growth in the economy, means we add more people and services and goods. And in that kind of environment, you're going to have high unemployment and social issues like we do have at this point in time. So how do we turn this around? Well, I think there's already a lot in the pipeline. There's a lot of talk about reform, addressing structural issues. We saw the example of Eskom. It took some time, but touch wood, it seems that we're making progress there. So we just need to push on, keep the government of national unity together and deliver on those reforms. The private sector is ready. They've got a lot of cash on their balance sheet, and we do see that some of these reforms are being signed in. And that will remove, hopefully, some of the structural issues from the ports to the logistics to the rails. That's still keeping a lot of the industries underwater. Again, earlier today, the numbers that we saw from mining, manufacturing, construction, they remain quite negative. And the important sectors in terms of creating jobs in this economy. So therefore, the reforms and the urgency to speed up the reforms are very important where we are at this point in time.
Maarten, do you think that we're getting distracted by global events, by GNU, away from where we should be focusing on, which is exactly what you're saying, the structural reforms, key decisions being made around policy and the implementation of those policies? Because, we're halfway through a policy and then the attention is somewhere else. Are we lacking a country that's able to focus on what is most important at this time?
I think we're getting better at that, focusing at the issues at hand. We also need to keep in mind that we're in an environment right now where there's a lot of dust being kicked up globally, from the Trump administration with tariffs, investor uncertainty, trade relationships that's under pressure, and we're in that mix as well. So you could clearly see that in the first quarter of this year, with confidence, not only in South Africa, but all over being quite depressed, business and consumer confidence. That normally acts as a major headwind for economic activity. Back to our report today from the GDP, gross fixed capital formation, which is basically investment back into the economy, private and public sector, that was down another 1.7. So that's a clear reflection that in a quarter like the first quarter, with all that uncertainty locally, we had the budget being kicked down the line. We had issues in the government of national unity. We had Trump and his tariffs all over that. In that kind of environment, companies are sitting on their hands and they don't invest. So we need to turn that corner where there's some hope that business confidence and consumer confidence can start ticking up again. And with that, you will see a flow of investment into the areas that we need to address. So I don't think we're focusing on the wrong issues, but we're also dealing with a lot of uncertainty that is just slowing down this whole process of addressing the issues at hand.
Let's put one issue to bed, and that's the Trump. Well, not. I think it's not going to go to bed for a while, but the Trump-South Africa relations. You know, we seem to make headway, but then the risk still seems to be there. What's Citadel's view? What's your view on where we are with the U.S.-South Africa relations?
Well, I think, after not maybe the meeting in the Oval Office, but the meeting thereafter, where they really got away from the media, because we know that's the Trump style to really try and have a bit of a show beforehand. But the real negotiations and the real discussions actually happens afterwards for 2 or 3 hours when they sit around the table. And the feedback that we are getting from those negotiations are that it's been very proactive, very positive. And in fact, after all of that, we're probably now at a better point where we were before that meeting took place. So we're not out of the woods yet. Trump and his administration come with very specific criteria. But I do think it's very, very positive that we are talking. And there is potentially going to be some benefits in terms of having these discussions, where there will be some upside for us, even if AGOA being kicked out. Some of our exports will continue with low or no tariffs whatsoever. But there's definitely going to be some of our industries that are facing quite significant headwinds. But I think, having those conversations where we are right now is a much better place compared to, let's say, a month or two ago.
And Maarten, you spoke a little bit about the potential global recession that's to come, and the projection for South Africa as well. But I've only got time for one more question, and I wanted just to lean into, on the back of this market volatility, what is the messaging, or what is the thought you want to share with investors?
Yeah, I think very important. We've learned through COVID that everybody thought the world's coming to an end, probably overreacted, and then the world normalized. The world companies, consumers are quite dynamic. We're seeing the same this time around. So the world will readjust to these kind of different trade headwinds. And 2-3 years down the line, there will be a new equilibrium. The world will be back to capacity growth. So using this kind of volatility, look for quality assets, so that you can build a portfolio that you actually want for this new world that's going to start to develop in the next 2 to 3 years.
And I think, that being said, Maarten, we have to have this conversation again, because I think in 6 months this would be like COVID. We would have normalized around it. But I want to thank you so much for your time and for your insights. That's Maarten Ackerman, Chief Economist at Citadel.